Hello and welcome to The Breakdown with Orla Shinaway.
And Greg Rutherford. There you go, I'm giving myself a bigger one this time. Here we are.
Oh, if you're only
I even did arms open.
If you're only listening in the podcast, I wish you could see what Greg just did. A full lean back into the chair, arms wide open, welcoming himself to the podcast.
Welcoming everybody else to me, not you, to me.
Welcoming everybody to you, because that doesn't sound less weird. Anyway, welcome to The Breakdown, the podcast from Eurosport and Discovery, which of course you know because you've clicked on it. Our guest today is someone a little bit different. And we wanted to go different because so far we have spoken to elite athletes only. But as a non-elite athlete, you may have noticed, I'm really interested in how essentially we use sport in all walks of life, or the discipline of sport, or the lessons that we learn from sport to make ourselves better in any way whatsoever, or to deal with hard things that you go through, difficult things that you go through. And I feel like those are the kinds of lessons that we can learn from all kinds of people. So we've opened it up a little bit to other well-known people, other celebrities, and our first non-elite sporting guest is a dear friend of yours. So I'm going to let you introduce him.
Yeah, so we've brought on a certain Robert Rinder, who is known as Judge Rinder to a lot of people who watch daytime TV or have seen him on different shows, listened to him speak. A really inspirational person. And actually, when you start to understand some of his sporting ability, you sort of think, actually, you're not too far off of elite sportsman anyway. He is an utterly fascinating person. One of the most intelligent people I've ever spoken to or met in my life. Second to you, of course, Laura. And he really does have these incredible stories, but a way of telling them, which I think had us hooked the entire journey. That's what it was on this chat. It was a journey for both of us, I think. And I'd also like to add, he's such a lovely person that he's now become your friend as well, which I know you're thrilled about. How happy you are again as well. He is one of those people that when you have a conversation with him, you just want to have more conversations with him. And I now know that's what you're doing.
Rob will be listening to this and he'll be thinking, no, we're not friends, I'm just being polite. He's already WhatsApped me to arrange what we're jokingly calling our third date. Our first date was before we started recording the podcast, and I felt like he was putting me to the test, like you say about his intelligence. He's fiercely intelligent. His opening words to me were, I was wearing a lime green corduroy jumpsuit, and his opening words were, every bit of you screams microaggression to a gay man. I thought, wow, how do I respond to that? And you sat back as we sparred, I guess, for the next half an hour. And I knew he was sort of testing me, but I enjoyed it. I love a challenge anyway. And I thought, I'm going to pass this. I'm going to get into your good books. So that was our first date. The second date was the podcast. We've arranged a third date in Paris. I didn't tell you it's in Paris. We're going reading and shopping in Paris. Perfect. Is the plan. But he was absolutely just amazing as a guest, actually. And the stories that he told, as you say, had us gripped. And I hope the listeners will take something from it as well. Here is The Breakdown with Rob Rinder. Rob, thank you for joining us for our podcast in Central London. We're all sort of laughing nervously because we've had a very deep and meaningful, philosophical discussion, really, before we started recording, haven't we?
A bit worried. I feel like we've already been on our first date.
Has it gone well? Are we going on a second?
We are.
Oh,
but then
good.
it's like
I'm relieved.
now it's a difficult second date.
It's not going to live up to the first one.
We've run out of conversation.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface, to be honest.
I haven't spoken in the last 2 hours.
I know, which is why the first date went so well. Second date, we've got this hanger on.
I know, but I'm sorry.
Well, I think as well, obviously we have to say the podcast is predominantly about sport, isn't it? And Rob, of course, you're not known as being a professional sportsman, of course, but sport has played a part in your life, certain sports that you love and things that you do for yourself is also, so that's why we thought we'd come. Of course, as well, you're one of my very close friends. Godfather to my middle son Rex, and just quite important in my life. So,
which is why you sat back and allowed us to have our first date.
Well, it's always really interesting. Whenever I love watching Rob talk, and that sounds really. I probably try and surround myself with really intelligent people by you all. Because I know that I'm not hugely intelligent, not in the way that a lot of others are. But I love listening to people that are, because you get a really interesting view on the world. As I've just listened to you guys have this incredible conversation.
You see, even though you're trying to insult me now that the podcast has started, you did say to me a moment ago, whenever Rob went off to the toilet, he said, "You're going to be okay because you're quite clever. If you weren't, Rob would annihilate you."
No, that's so not true.
No, Rob loves everybody.
I don't like incuriosity. That's
okay. Yeah, that's
my
that's
version
different.
of thickness is that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
sort of very,
absolutely.
I'm never interested in somebody's CV or how impressive they think they are.
Or what they've studied.
Right, because they've jumped through hoops. Anybody can do that. And to that sort of deliberate self-deprecation, looking for some sort of ego massage over there in its magnificent redness.
So glad you spot that.
Oh, yes, because I'm so unintelligent. All it needed was a Princess Margaret cigarette to punctuate it. As we sat there...
Until we stayed silent.
Right, deliberate silence. Right, I'm not a sportsman, but I did teach what's called forensics, but debating, and spent quite a lot of time doing that with young people. And you're one of the best natural speakers I've ever heard. And also being...
So you've done it.
Right.
You've given him the...
But it's true, it's aggravating. I mean, it aggravates a lot. Well, it aggravates a lot because it's actually, it's difficult to teach, but when you watch somebody like playing the piano naturally, with that much talent, it can be, delightful if it's your friend, but also, deeply aggrieving. I mean, what do I bring to the conversation?
Oh my goodness, what do you not bring to the conversation? We're going to get into all of this. I want to ask you first of all, because whenever we discussed bringing you onto the podcast, Greg was telling me about your initial sporting loves for a start, and I'm fascinated by them. Tell me, please.
Well, I was thinking about this before coming here because, like you say, it was sort of an odd decision, I suppose. I mean, I just felt like I was window dressing between your sort of more interesting guests.
No, and you're fishing.
No, but sort of people going through thinking, what? What's he doing here?
I told you before, I like random. I think it's a little bit of a random.
This is right. Yeah. My sporting interests, I think, were located oppositionally from the kind of buffet of sporting activity that was available to me as a child. Right, so sort of my family, my brother and my dad had football as the kind of more than religious. It was absolutely the kind of spiritual epicenter of our house. Tottenham Hotspur Football Club was precisely that. And I found the whole thing completely alienating for all sorts of reasons, three chief ones. I mean, first of all, the stadium was dirty and noisy, and secondly, it was a team sport, which I couldn't possibly understand. It sort of interfered with my early sort of, feelings that too many participants were able to claim the glory, really. It just struck me, I just didn't do well in that sort of participation and cooperation.
That's fascinating.
That's interesting because that's where I struggled with team sports. That's why I did.
You were just not honest about it.
You didn't want to share the glory.
Well, no, it's not just that. No, what used to frustrate the hell out of me, playing football in particular, is that you can have a really good game, but then somebody else makes a mistake and you lose. And as a child, or early teen, whatever else, I couldn't comprehend that. Why would you make that mistake? And obviously now you fully appreciate as you get older and your brain grows a little bit. But at that time, I could not deal with it. I couldn't deal with other people losing on my behalf.
See, this is where we're so different. I hated team sport because I didn't want to be the person letting other people down. That pressure on me I find just paralysing, which is why I went into athletics, because I love being able to just rely on myself. I find that very liberating.
Yeah. I mean, I hear and acknowledge both of those things, and certainly they were, yours was more accurate. I would have been concerned about letting people down, because was my third point, which was I just wasn't very good at it. I just didn't care, And there they were, talking about Tottenham, and still now. I mean, my dad has dementia, but insofar as he's able to remember things, very young, it's sad. Tottenham is absolutely the prism, the language, the currency which they can communicate. And as I've got older, looking back, and now found an appreciation for it, I realised just how magically vital it is, especially in a house of, in that relationship, for them to be able to have that with each other. Now my nephews are very, very good and probably about to be professional footballers. Things are problematic in your relationship, Tottenham Hotspur. Work is difficult, Tottenham Hotspur. The markets are down, Tottenham Hotspur.
Isn't that the beauty of sport in a way, though?
It is, but that gift that being connected to a team adds another level of emotional complexion, that you tie yourself to the ups and downs, the drama, and the story of that team. I really understand that for them, but I didn't necessarily need that. I was sort of some weird foundling who sort of found literature and just thought to myself, well, I don't really understand it. I mean, told this story before, but it's true. But they used to have Panini football stickers, you know, collect them in teams, and I could never really understand that. So I used to collect them in order of attractiveness. And I could only I had a whole...
So we've got a lot of similarities, really.
Did you have a whole Panini football sticker book of Jan Molby?
Jan Molby, that's niche,
for
isn't
Liverpool.
it? So can I jump from Jan Molby
Sorry.
to figure skating and
Yeah.
to women's gymnastics, because that's what you, I understand from Greg at least, did
Passions.
develop a passion for.
Real passions, yeah.
But specifically women's gymnastics as well.
Now,
This is-
because I understand it more and I was more interested. Well, actually, I think there's a real specific reason for that. So, at school, the first sport that I took part in any seriousness was gymnastics.
Oh.
I actually got a really funny photo. I found it the other day of me in Osage School gym team. I was the only boy. It's me in the middle of the bars. You know, school had the bars.
Yeah.
Quite there were 4 actually. It's kind of odd now.
But the bars that you used to go against the wall
Yeah.
and you'd pull them out. Yeah, I remember them
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, the bar.
And there'd always be like a hoop,
Climb up
a
them.
fixed hoop in there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we had badges, and you go down to bagger 1. Do you remember that? And I did like bagger 1 within like a week. I was really into this stuff.
What could you do, and what did you have to be able to perform for that? Splits or
Yeah,
handstands?
splits.
Left leg or right leg splits or
I could
middle?
do both, and box
Oh,
split,
really?
and yeah, a round off backflip, somersault,
Wow.
probably, and vault, and a group dance to Diana Ross's Chain Reaction, which is
Oh,
on now for-
wonderful. How many were in the group?
There were several. I can name them all, which is
Can
really
you?
yeah. Sarah Dennis, I hope you're doing well. Yeah, I remember the whole thing. And so I was really into that. But you see, I was probably a little too old because I was about 7. And, you know, my family weren't then taking me to the gym club where you would have made the transfer, I suppose, to all of the... I mean, first of all, it wasn't a big national sport like it is now. Right, there was no Max Whitlock and so on and so forth, no training, or certainly nowhere near Southgate that anybody would have taken me seriously to go to gymnastics. I mean, it would have been, I suspect, like quite a Billy Elliot moment if that's what I had. But they were perfectly happy to have enjoyed me taking part, I suppose. You know, it was sort of fun for them. Actually, I don't know, I've never asked them. But you only did floor and vault. So I never graduated to the other apparatus, whatever, of men's gymnastics. So I stuck there, and then I went to a men's boys secondary school, which was deeply unsuitable for me, where they only play rugby and things.
Right.
Couldn't understand that for a second. I mean, I think I played a game. My brother was, you know, county and junior England for football, and they gave me a ball when I arrived, put me in the 18 by genetic virtue. I couldn't catch it if I had glue
this,
on it.
This does happen. So as well, I have an older brother who was the
Yeah.
rugby star in the area, was trying at Northampton Saints,
Yeah.
all this sort of stuff. Exactly the same happened, whereas he's double the width of me,
Yeah.
far stronger. I then came into the school and straight away it was, will you play on the wing? And I just got battered. Absolutely hammered by everybody.
You
Just purely-
said you're quite good at rugby in the end, though, no?
Well, I was quick, so I could run around people. But
Yes.
all they then would do is
Run away.
load the wing up with three people. All of them would just get the ginger kid, and that's all that happened. And the last time I ever played rugby, I'd had a broken hand, but I was still put into the team. And a player grabbed my hand, and obviously on the opposite
Brutal.
side, just to get it. And I walked off. I said,
So,
I've
you
had
know,
enough.
there's stories of people like, not myself, who have joined support groups and then, you know, inadvertently added unhelpful contributions. That feels a lot like that. The idea that somehow your experience won an Olympic gold medal, double medal.
Nothing in rugby though.
Trying to
arrived
elicit
in rugby,
sympathy
right.
for his rugby playing.
It's like me. My sport was gymnastics and horse riding and figure skating. Arriving at school going, and Mr. Relton, wherever you are, going, mate, blah, 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 blah. I was like, excuse me, what? Something about hookers, or I have no idea. I was reading at the time. And then me playing this game with Wesley Smith. I remember the entire name of it.
I was just thinking,
Terrible.
God help anyone who's wronged you. I think you're not going to forget
No,
it.
no. I just eviscerate them in fiction that I haven't written yet. but no. So gymnastics, and so because of that, over the years when gymnastics was on, I would be more interested in the women's apparatus because I did vault
you'd done
and
them.
floor, and because I'm curatorial, which means I become I suppose the best way of describing it nowadays is going down rabbit holes on YouTube. But I become obsessive about things and have to know it and understand it as far as I can. And so talk about deep dives. I did some real deep dives.
On Greg?
On Greg. Not just on Greg. No, being near him, watching him dance on Strictly, and the way in which being competitive interferes or is a fundamental part of your mental chemistry. I don't mean competitive in the way people say I'm very competitive. I've seen competitive people and I'm a competitive person. And you are. I'm talking about you guys. I'm talking about where you are competing, but you ultimately achieve world-class status. That it requires something beyond the ordinary, beyond the normal, that is really akin, the closest thing I've seen to something other, a sort of obsession. You know, Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book about outliers. You may have read, right? And it's the most unusual thing. So in Greg's case, when we were doing Strictly, the only time I ever saw him happy, genuinely, most of the time, I wasn't going to say you were happy. We had a nice time together.
We did
It
have
was
a nice
joy
time
to meet
together,
you.
yeah.
But the time that you were most alive was if he was like in the bottom two in the dance, where this stage I couldn't watch.
Challenged. He loves a challenge.
It really was. And then fast forwarding, I went to watch Greg eventually at the last thing you competed in at the Stratford
Stadium,
Olympic Stadium. It was really moving.
I was rubbish by that point. I was very injured.
It wasn't your best day. You were injured, but it wasn't that. Everyone had Greg faces, and it was actually quite a profound thing to be at. But then I realised that the relationship, and it is a relationship that you have with this sport, with the obsession, with the winning, with this complex thread, I mean, this even more peculiar tapestry that world-class athletes, world-class winning athletes have, that to rid yourself of it almost feels like a species of grief. It's part of your DNA, winning, and the need and the thirst and the hunger for it, and the sense in which anything short of it is inexcusable. I've been around people like that. I don't have that.
Do you not have it? Because I find that absolutely fascinating.
It depends on the thing I'm taking part in, but I'm realistic. No, you asked about my running. I am competitive, but against myself, and it's only because I started really late. I did gymnastics, then like no sport at all. Then I was practicing as a barrister. I was 2 years, a bit ahead at school, I suppose, and so I was practicing way too young, 21, 22. You know, by the time I was 24, 25, I was doing murder trials and so on and so forth, and spent most of my time sort of eating. And there wasn't really time for that. So I put on a load of weight. And then just before I was 30, I decided I would sort of find a way, find a sport, or do something.
That is quite late. It's hard to pick up sport at that age, is it? No?
Maybe. I mean, yeah, the answer is yeah, anything's hard, but it's easier.
Because it's muscle memory, literally.
To be
isn't
sure,
it?
but you can curate your life accordingly.
Of course.
It's not that hard to run. I'd always been sort of doing jogging. And that sort of,
just walking faster.
so we
isn't
kind
it?
of overstate that idea. That must be really hard.
Well, no,
Not hard, I guess, maybe more unusual. People get into a rut with their lives.
but
don't
not even
they?
that. A lot of people go for a jog. You've not only gone for a jog, you've then run very fast marathons.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I started at the end of my 20s. I'd put on a lot of weight. There are some pictures which are
Greg showed me a few.
yeah, I probably got some more actually. I'm just sort of unhappy with myself. And then I thought, well, what I'll do is I started training at a gym, and I'd hated going to the gym before. And I realized what mattered was marrying up my diet and the gym, but also making a sort of the gym a critical part of my day.
Did it have to become a routine for you then?
Completely.
Not something you would dip in and out of?
Yeah, and not negotiable.
Right. You need to push yourself, do you?
Completely. And I'm pushing against me. And then so the running started, and I entered a couple of marathons, and I did a mountain marathon where I did about, my best time was about 2:56 or
In a
something.
mountain marathon?
Well, what happened there was that wasn't intended. It's because, do you remember Trans World Sport?
Do you remember Trans
I was
World
on Trans World
Sport?
Sport.
Were you?
Yeah.
as a conker player. Do you remember they used to have that
Crawling
sort of,
competition
They used to have
in
all
your
of that. Like
nappies.
you'd have some really sort of athlete whose life you'd never heard of.
Yeah,
in the
I
early
loved
stages.
it.
It's
Yeah, which is
amazing.
brilliant.
And then you'd have the great cheese roll. It's such a good-
yeah, which
like
is a wonderful
It's a
sport,
really
actually.
great show. Anyway, these people were there, right? And so I took off, and I hadn't read the map, with all of like the professional female, because I just wanted to be on the telly. And the next one, it felt like an ordinary marathon. 10 miles in, I was doing all right, and it's always important. Don't listen to what people tell you. Oh, when you do your first marathon, take it slow. Take it slow, you know? Pace yourself. Bollocks.
Smash it.
Push yourself.
Well, the other thing, if
Running
you've been
is all
training
in your
well-
mind.
Yeah, if you've been training well as well, surely there's no point training well for something like a marathon then just taking it easy. Sure.
I've
never done one though.
Oh yeah, you
so
haven't,
I
that's
say.
true.
Stupid amounts of like, you know, self-immolating violence that people do by overthinking. You can see like they start marathons, you can sort of see them praying. And it's like, I mean, it's like the London Marathon, which is just the most inexcusable bore of a thing to do.
Why?
Well, because it's so deeply horrible. I mean, I did the first one, which was fine. I didn't train very much for that.
No.
What was my time for that? 3:12 or something. Wasn't it?
Wow. You don't dress
you
up?
couldn't look at it. As what? A rhino? What's wrong with you? The back of a what do you mean? That was your
London
question.
Marathon.
That was the question. What did you wear? Was I the back end of it?
Because lots of people, that's the attraction of the London Marathon over other marathons sometimes. Obviously, you don't need to answer that anymore, Rob. I've got the answer.
Yeah,
I can,
the face does
I'm
say it
quite
as well.
perceptive like that.
So you find people at the start of marathons and they go, you could bet that they're praying to Yahweh. You know, they're all talking about technique. They're rubbing the Vaseline on their nipples.
In all places.
All of that stuff. You know, I mean, just pull yourself together.
That's the
all of that.
advice. For anybody who's listening, who's planning on running a marathon, the advice is just pull yourself together.
No, I don't mean that in a way which is crass or, you know, people feel vulnerable. I feel very strongly that people should be able to express that sort of thing, to be sure. But what I'm talking about is the asphyxiating danger of overthink.
Yeah.
Overthinking sport, forgetting the joy of it, and also listening to your inner demons, which will tell you, you know, okay, I've got to go slowly, I've got to overplan it, overthink it. The whole joy and the gift that running brings you is the capacity, limitless, I think, to switch your brain off. But also to push yourself. And eventually what I have found, I'm sure it's not true for everybody, so you have to be careful about the weather and that sort of thing, is that eventually if you tell your body to do something, especially with running, it gets into the rhythm and it will carry on. And you don't want to listen to it too much unless the pain really arrives. But with marathons, you know, I found that that's been a sort of successful strategy. Coming back to London, the problem with it is that you start in Woolwich, no offence, and you pass Belmarsh, waving at my old clients, most of them do. So 30 years to life, so greeting. And then you're running through Woolwich, and then all of a sudden you sort of arrive at Tower Bridge, which is your like yay moment. Oh God, this is nice and pleasant. That's half the marathon done.
Yeah.
It's half marathon point. Okay, good. We're running. We're so, you know. Here, Judge Rinder, do you want a sweet? Carry on. Hear the little go. Is that the one you pissed on? No, fine. Everything's good. And it's fine. And I was really pushing it. And then you realise, as these people are running in the other direction, the professionals by this stage, if you're running about 3:10 or 2:40 or whatever it is, that sort of group, that they're now finished that little bit. And that little bit is 10 miles around the Isle of Dogs. 10 miles around the Isle of Dogs. I don't understand. Where's London? What happened to London? It was just sort of... The Isle of Dogs has now been, you know, delightfully gentrified. And everybody there was charming and offering water and all of that sort of thing. But so what? And then there's the last bit. The last bit is on you know, the embankment and the map. That's the last bit.
Yeah.
The last
The
bit
bit you want.
It's a bit of a view. Why did you finish it so quickly? Because the architecture was so disappointing. And then at the end, and then the other thing I can't say is the inauthentic way, you know, people are kissing the earth as if they've arrived in the Holy Land, or, you know, found the immutable truth of some otherwise hidden secret. Best day of my life. And you feel desperately guilty unless you sort of join in with them and feel conscripted into And I just sort of had nothing really. I said, well, yes, I'm quite glad that was finished.
But you mentioned something there, which obviously I think is very interesting. Probably a lot of people use things like running for, which is to try and switch off the mind, or in some people's cases, is to obviously think about things. From your point of view, now, obviously the job that you had for a long time was an incredibly stressful job, with some unbelievable, because some of the things you've told me over the years of cases that you've worked on, people you've worked with, etc. Do you find, or do you think that running has become something, and maybe obsession is the wrong word because you're not obsessed with it, but something you want to push yourself to try and maybe switch off that side of things, to get away from, or want for better.
Well, not just that, but my mobile phone as well.
I'm curious about the non-negotiable part of your exercise. And I wonder how much as well it's a question of discipline and distraction, or how much of it is, I, for example, would tend to maybe dip in and out of exercise more than have it every day. But I have anxiety, and I've always had it. And I find that where exercise is really useful for me is when I create muscle burn anywhere, when my body hurts, there's no space for anything else in my head because all I've got is the pain, and that's why I like the pain.
Yeah, it's that. It's negative and positive. I mean, it's complex, right? And we could pretend it's not, but it is. There are negative and positive reasons. You know, I have a relationship with my body which I want to, which is like all men, especially now, you know, nuanced. You know, I don't like to feel overweight, even though I'm eating really badly at the moment. And I think that my relationship with food, as I've come to discover over the last few years especially, is irrevocably connected, as it is with so many people, with my emotional life in a way that I hadn't necessarily thought about till lockdown until now. Same with drinking. I don't drink during the day. And so for me, if I don't exercise every day, I somehow have not counted the amount of food that I've eaten. And that's been especially true at the moment. That's a negative reason to exercise. Not least because you'll never exercise your way into a good body or to a healthy body if you're not eating well. That's the critical part of it, which I discovered when I first started exercise. But also it's negative. But for the positive reasons, exactly as you describe, yeah, it's true that my anxiety levels go down. That's without question. But it's about three things, right? One, having completed a solid hour, something difficult where I've sweated, it's done.
Achievement.
It's something in a day of ephemeral stuff that's been done. It's somehow crossed off the list. And we, with our jobs, with most people's jobs, with most people's lives, there's never something in a day, in a month, in a week, which is actually complete. But that you can do 1 hour and it's done. And I did my class and it's finished. You know, there's something really powerful in just being able to say that's finished and drawing a line under it under the day. The second thing is, and this is not sort of I use this language on purpose, a virtue signal. You talked about being anxious and etc. I also have to be really mindful of my privilege. You've got 2 kids, he's got 3, and other calls on his time, right? I'm able to do this because I can act wholly selfishly. I don't have kids, right? So I can, like I did yesterday, look across the board of what the day is and go, well, I can do this exercise class. Because even though I may have work, I can usually consciously curate my day and find a space to do that class. And the third element of it is that, and this is really important, why I tend to do classes more than, say, running nowadays, is because my phone goes away. And the incalculable impact that having the phone has, and it's despite everything, no matter what you do, what discipline you apply, its tempting capacity to be there present all the time so that you are available. I found, for example, when I joined a gym and then immediately unjoined it, that, yeah, I might do a session there and I can do weights, but it would take twice as long, and I'll do a interval training, let's say on one of the settings on the treadmill. But I'm constantly looking at emails, or I'm on Twitter, or I'm not wholly present just in the breath, in sweating, in running, and above all else, and this is the most articulate expression, is I think for those of us perhaps who aren't professional athletes, just being there in the moment and present. I even notice it, and that's especially true of running. And its most magical expression of it happened when I got to do this comic relief thing, which was amazing.
There was a sports relief thing that you did a few years ago, wasn't it? And it was a trek across the desert, was it, as I recall?
Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be a... I mean, he wanted to do it.
I begged to go.
They didn't let you do
They
it.
couldn't let us. It's not supposed to be for sports people.
I say, of course, you were going to win.
Right.
Whereas
there's
it was
no
supposed to be some
competition
sort of an
winning it.
existential experience.
There was no
perhaps.
competition. No, it wasn't that. It was just purely because I'd been a professional sportsman, so I was told I'm not allowed because it's not for anybody.
And why did you want to do it?
To push myself. 100%.
Actually, the actual original thing wouldn't have pushed you or me. The thing that did happen would have done. To be fair. But they can't. The whole thing would be like, you know, people assume if you've won an Olympic gold medal, do you know what I mean? That a sport challenge that involves running isn't going to be desperately challenging for
Absolutely.
you.
Well,
It's fair.
No, but no. But the big thing is, I think this is what the massive misconception that people have about people that participate in professional sport. Just because I was good at running a straight line and jumping into a sandpit, I'm not particularly good at endurance running.
Yeah, but Greg,
at all.
come on.
I have
Name
a
me a
mindset.
sport. Name me a sport that you're not exceptionally good at. And this is said absolutely through gritted teeth because it is a source of constant annoyance to me. You're actually brilliant at most sports.
Right.
So
No, I would
very
I would
annoying.
first.
You can't bear it. Cannot bear it.
I've got a
If there was
a soul
tiddlywinks,
brother here.
you would have to win.
and
No,
you
but
would win. That's the annoying thing.
We did
Shut up, shut
we
up.
did a telly quiz
Yeah.
of some script, which I also gave my undivided indifference to. And it was only because I was like, it's Mike Gregory. I was like, when he went off for a second, I just saw only for 2 seconds. To be absolutely honest, hate the expression "to be fair" because that's usually a prefix before you call somebody's girlfriend desperately ugly.
For example.
To be fair, such a weird thing. To be fair, like,
I wouldn't be saying if I weren't being fair.
Right, that's it.
Yeah,
As long as
yeah.
you're
I'm
being
not-
fair. As long as you're being fair.
right, but
To be fair.
I did only notice a flash for a second. But I felt when we did that, what was it called with the things with the pointless?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it before. I know Ben. Well, he's also into his sport.
Tipping point.
Tipping point.
Tipping
I suppose,
point.
yeah.
What did I
It's
call
Ben.
it?
You said
Pointless.
pointless, which is another one.
Oh, all right.
Tipping point is the one with the
It was mesmerising. Right, it was like being in Southend when I was a kid.
Yeah. It's
I
like
couldn't
when you
understand
meet an
what
arcade,
was
yeah.
going on.
The
but-
2p machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, not as bad as recently for charity. I did catchphrase.
Oh, I love catchphrase.
I was so terrible at it.
Mr. Chips.
No,
Well-
yours was brilliant. One of the clips that I saw that came from that was just a genius response. I can't remember for the life of it. It'll be.
I wasn't doing it for laughs.
It was utterly hilarious.
So I don't do, but you know, I wanted to raise as much money as possible for a place where my dad lives, and you know, obviously people think I've got sort of Judge Judy money, so why can't you just pay for it? Trust me, that's America. It's not the same thing. So there's loads of money for charity. Oh, great, yeah, sure, I'll show up and do that. Who cares? And I do the cryptic crossword most days. So I was like, well, pretty quickly, I was, how difficult could this be? Well, difficult, it turned out. And it's the only quiz
Was
I've...
it a tipping point?
No, catchphrase.
Oh, there's a
It's
catchphrase,
the only
right.
quiz I've been on, which I haven't sort of won, because most of them are general knowledge questions,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
I mean, what was it? And it was things like, I thought, things like narcissistic personality disorder. And it turned out to be policeman. Or one of them was work shy. And I said, because to me, it looked like the woman was being hideously bullied at work. So I said, constructive dismissal. And poor, is it Stephen Mulhern?
Mulhern. Yeah.
It's just sort of looking at me. I just
What is wrong with you?
you've got them on. Yeah, or emotionally problematic parenting was one of it. There was like a
You didn't say that as a catchphrase.
yes, that's a phrase I would use.
Emotionally problematic parents.
That's what I would say.
I mean, to be fair, you did say that you've never watched it, so I can.
No, I watched it when I was little.
Oh, right, okay.
But I just missed the. I was like,
You missed the
what's
point.
going on? Anyway, we did one of these pointless things. Anyway, he was terrible at it. And,
No. Hang on. In
Oh,
my
here we
defence, I answered lots of questions correctly.
That's true.
The problem was every time the coin dropped,
But do you see?
There's always
So
an
what, you
excuse.
can watch the trigger. Because here's the thing. No, but we come back to our best of the best, you see. When he walked off, when Greg walked off, it offended his spiritual sense of winning.
Then we are getting into therapy, and I'm aware that we're actually going to run out of time very quickly, Rob.
Oh no, I want
and-
to talk about the therapy, because one thing, because actually you talk about darkness and light. So this sports relief thing, which I should talk about because it was the best sporting day of my life. And both amazing, but also mildly tragic, because I've never been able to get back there. And it did send me into a depression, and I mean that word on purpose, and I use that word specifically and would not unless I meant that word. We were supposed to do this cold triathlon in Mongolia, which was supposed to be the coldest triathlon in the world. We were going to do skating, cycling, and walking. Well, I mean, anybody can walk. It's one foot in front of the other, unless you're, well, I'm sure we've got a list of people that we'd keep to ourselves who probably would moan at it. But, you know, as long as you're warm enough, right? So it was me and Nick Grimshaw and Christian Guru Murphy. And I mean, none of them had done any training of any meaning. I think we showed up at an ice skating rink. One of them had done a spinning class, perhaps. But it wasn't like training or anything. But like I say, now at this point, I suppose for 15 years, more or less, there's no way I'm not at least every single morning by 9:30, I will have burnt at least 1,000 calories doing some serious exercise, right? So the COVID came, nobody quite knew what was going on, but they were about to shut down China, and they were worried that that was going to affect Mongolia, where this thing was going to take place, 100 miles across this frozen lake. So within a week, it being the BBC and Comic Relief and this big production company, they changed the whole thing and then became Race to the Reg. I never read small print, right? And often the thing that frustrates me when
Really?
not for this sort of thing, it's a sport thing, don't overthink it. We come back to the marathon. You're unlikely to die. Train, run, don't
on with
overthink
it.
it. I see that all the time in like barriers or running, you know, people overthinking it. And if you just were to deceive yourself and pretend you're running like, 2 miles an hour less than you actually were, you'd be fine. You can tell your body what's this really important relationship, and one that we so little, although we're learning more, understand. But I thought, this looked a bit ropey, so I should probably read what it is. And it says something like, only 53 people have ever completed this. And I thought, it seems a bit dodgy. Also, we're going in the middle of summer to Namibia. And we arrived there on this sort of, well, not sort of, it was a helicopter. And I was on that whole thing. It was me, Louise Minchin, and Nick Grimshaw, sort of working out in the event that the thing were to go horribly wrong, how down the also dead list I'd be.
I always do that when I'm getting on a plane and I see somebody famous. I think I'll never be
you?
remembered if this plane goes down.
Imagine that
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you're on a blooming, what's it called? One of those, what are they called? God, what's wrong with me? Ferries, yes.
Ferry.
Sorry, ferry. I was on one of them when it was like daytime TV going to get a national TV award. There was Gloria Hunniford and
Oh,
so.
goodness.
I know.
Did you rank yourself, though? That's
Yeah,
what I
I
do.
thought I'd get around the same time as, God forbid things went wrong, was Colleen Nolan. Colleen Nolan, Judge Rinder, he never married. That would be the
Survived by
right.
nobody. Yeah.
His flatulent dog. Who he's left everything to.
And Rex.
And
You left a
Rex.
painting to Rex.
Rex has a painting. Anyway, yeah, so I thought, well, I should probably read this, right? And so we helicopter into this desert, and it's cycling, it's 100 miles cycling, and then 2 days of running, and then the end is jazz hands and hair and makeup. And it's supposed to be about mental health and so on and so forth. Now, here's the thing, I am competitive. Right, I didn't want to win it, but they said absolutely categorically you can go at your own pace, and it would have killed me not to, right? And it was about 30 degrees. The reason I went as fast as I did is because part of the reason sometimes some people ask me to do sporting things, certainly in the past, is because there are both subconscious and very conscious biases towards what I must be like. So I perhaps present in a rather camp way. People rather depressingly, even now, and it is a form of homophobia. It's not a particularly violent one, but it's nevertheless one that people need to think about and be mindful of, and change insofar as they possibly can, is that I'm somehow going to be weaker, or less able to cope with more challenging physical situations. So as we were preparing for the ice bath thing, I remember they invited me to get into the ice bath. And of course, you know, expecting John Inman, you know, are you being served on steroids?
Hands in the air screaming.
Right. Well, of course, I sat down immediately and asked for a cigarette and a glass of wine. Because this is a very important thing in the sense of, you call it competitiveness, I call it FU. And I feel really strongly about that. So the first day, it was like 30 degrees, we're on a bike, and it looked like, first of all, I got to the first check at about 9 o'clock, did it quite quickly. It was tough. Let's say the hardest thing I've ever done, which is, let's say, the mountain marathon's like a 7. This was already a 7. Right. I thought, this is really, really difficult. It's really, really hard. And I got to the first check fairly quickly. I thought, people will manage this, but it's going to take them 4 times as long, but they'll get there before sunset. But the people behind me are going to struggle, especially the unfit ones. So it's probably a bit dangerous. I thought, not too bad. It then gets to about 32 degrees, and there's the most perfect cycle path you've ever seen, beguilingly long and straight, except it's on sand. I didn't realise. So there was just enough torque on the earth to allow the wheels to stay still, but not enough for them not to spin. So you could stay on it, but you could get to about 4 miles an hour, 30 degrees, and that was for about 6 hours. And I finished it, and they wanted their great big hero shot, you know, there's all like the cameras, and I cycle in and blah blah blah, and you know, everyone's sort of smiling at this stage because I've done it by 1 o'clock, and they go, have you got any first words, you know, what's your thing? And I must find the rushes to this, the cuts, because my first reaction was, well, I do think you should know everybody's going to sue you. And this happened, and well, not, they didn't get sued, but I was standing there for about an hour having a beer, you know, chilling out, waiting for people to come, and then the whole complexion of the day changed as the walkie-talkies start communicating with each other and everybody's getting stressed. And Nick Grimshaw very nearly died. Wow. And it was really a dumb thing to do. It was a really dangerous thing to do unless you'd been training for a long time. The last thing, this is where I wanted to get to, was that on day 2 I set off, and this was running. And again, there's no mobile phone. So it's like, what's the alchemy? What are the ingredients you need for the perfect day? What is running really about? And this is the purest that I reached, philosophically, emotionally. You know, you understand perhaps, and this is certainly what I understood, you know, why do so many spiritual texts emerge from places of geographical privation, which is a long word to describe as emptiness. The answer is because it conscripts you inward, and there's nothing more expressive than that, than being in the desert, in just that peculiar different yellowness of the desert and the sun. And we were just running, and I've got no sense of direction. I once got lost in someone's walk-in wardrobe. I was completely disastrous. But because I'm so useless, they just give you this sort of watch. I mean, even I, you know, the type of person who geographically stayed out an extra year to help Miss Grimes. You know, you just had to follow the arrow. So there I was following the arrow. I still managed to go off course by half a mile, but I just ran for a day. And it was me running with 2 sticks. It's not quite running because you had those poles, which I tried to get in touch with Norris McWhirter after he's dead, it turns out, but he used to run the Guinness Book of Records. Norris McWhirter, bless him. And I thought that because I had a valid claim for a 27-mile mince. Apparently not. Because with the sticks, didn't. But I was running along, and it was sort of 30 degrees, and I did no mobile phone reception, but enough power, various things for me, just me, water. You'd stop every 5k or whatever it was. That's a bit of water. I just carried on running, and the only thing I had was the sun, my breath, and music. And I had we talk about classical music, but I had the Mahler symphonies, which people sometimes recoil from. They think Mahler, and they, you know, as if somehow I pulled the guts of their own pretension. But you don't need all of it, right? Just listen to the Adagio movement of the 5th Mahler symphony, and you'll understand. Don't matter whether you like classical music or not, even if you hate it, it'll change you. That, by the way, and a bunch of Dolly Parton and even some One Direction. So there I was. I was running along, and about halfway through, really at a steady pace, wasn't seeking to do a time, because the only race was finishing before sundown. You had to finish before sundown. I was running along, and there was a moment, a sweet spot, the sweetest of sweet spots, where I found myself completely in the moment. And it's the way that people have described what they've achieved, perhaps in meditation, often met by me rolling my eyes and shrugging my shoulders. But it was real, where all I had was no past or future. I was just present and running and there. And I found myself, which is not something I do, not because I denigrate it in any way. I think it's enormously important, and the fact that I was unable, as I will explain what I did, to do this for so long represented just how disassociated perhaps I was from so many feelings and experiences and things. I found myself crying for 10 minutes uncontrollably, running. I was on a salt plane, and it was the most physically and spiritually beautiful moment of my life. Being in the moment, just in the breath, just in the presence of nothing but breath and presence and the stillness of time. And it was magical. Magical. And a real gift. And then, of course, what happened, and I use the word of course, is once you reach that, let's use perhaps a word which will connect and immediately goes into from the spiritual sublime to the sordid. But once you reach that kind of orgasmic moment, one of the challenges, of course, like any first, perhaps only time like that, is you wanting to seek that out again and again and again. And I'd never been able to refine it. And we went immediately into lockdown. And having had that, I came back we all got COVID immediately. I then spent and have continued to spend, but certainly spent a good deal of time trying to recapture that in some way. And never have. And desperately wanting to. Being just there, just present, just in the moment, just in the breath. Nothing else matters. And so part of the journey from that, as I was depressed again, and I'd been depressed in the past, was to find out ways to get as close to getting back there as I possibly could. And I've achieved it a little bit, that and with the help of cold swimming, which has been amazing.
Mm-hmm. That's so powerful.
Incredibly powerful.
Even getting that moment, I think, is something that so many people strive for. You mentioned meditation. That's the goal of meditation, is to reach that state.
I believe
Paula
you.
loves it, by the way.
I love it. I love
Sitting
that.
still.
I can recognise that, but I only get flashes of it and flashes of it. And as you say, it's this orgasmic state that you need to keep. You need to keep, and you can't. Like, as soon as you're trying to grasp a hold of it, it goes away. And that's the tragedy of it, but being able to achieve it ever, I think, is amazing.
Well, I mean, I'd had some tragedy when I was very young, and I hadn't cried pretty much properly since then. It was as if it was all gone. It was magic. I can't, through exercise, The problem is to celebrate it, to know that it happened, rather than to try and recurate or recapture it. I made the dreadful mistake of going with Gregory Rutherford. Because I figured, what I should do in that little brief window. To be fair, this is good friendship, where people are so in tune with you, they know they're a little bit worried. He knew I was in a bit of a nadir, and so I announced, and he thought I'd taken leave to my senses. I was going to go walking in the Lake District. Like, what are you doing? So we booked ourselves into a rather sweet...
It was a lovely hotel,
Lovely.
family-run hotel.
It was very, very sweet. Yeah.
Do you know, it's really interesting, and obviously I know we are really running out of time,
Sorry.
but talking about... No, for me, because I don't want to add my sort of sporting experiences as like a crass throw on the top of just going, oh yeah, but it's really interesting from my point of view, because those experiences, there's obviously a moment in my life which was that moment, of course, in a sporting sense, because I think a lot of people will probably have a desire to reach that external to sport, be that through, again, running or whatever else they're doing in life, to have that moment that you're talking about. For me, I obviously had that moment, and that was at an Olympic Games. Now, what was really interesting from my point of view with it is that I instantly knew after the London Games that it would never be that good again. And I knew that, and I was very conscious that was never going to be. I said to myself, though, if I could just get 10% of that feeling, it would probably be enough for me. And I did, and obviously I searched for that, and I was very lucky to then go and have success. But just by us having this conversation and things that we've joked about and laughed about, it obviously helps me realise a little bit, because this has at times turned into a therapy session for me, I've realised. But you realise, actually, possibly, even though obviously from my point of view, my sporting career is gone, which was where I could get those feelings from, be it 10% or whatever it would be. Obviously, what I do is that I search for it in a physical sense still, because physically that's how I associate myself with success. So then when I want to come on a challenge, like running across the desert with you, and I know I'd be rubbish at it, but I would push my body, because my brain can do that. I can push my body in ridiculous ways. I would do it still, and it would be horrific. I'd get burnt, I'd be dehydrated, the whole thing. But I love that. And this is why, as well, for me, I search to challenge myself constantly
To
because
achieve that state.
to try and reach that 10% of what the ultimate moment was. But the thing is that I obviously will say, and there'll be other people that maybe have reached that incredible highlight you have as well, is that maybe it is impossible to get it again.
It wasn't about, obviously yours was an extraordinary...
No, but each their own. I think we have to say that. That's what I'm saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I'm not comparing it. Safe to say that this.
No, but I'm not comparing mine either. That's what I mean.
No, it's just about... Although what we would both have difficult room for, this is where you and I wouldn't get on the sort of challenge, is that I've got no room for sort of complaining. That was...
You moan too much.
Well, no. Yes. When we did... because when we did start running together as a little sweet group, I went with a lovely boy called Karim, who was running... Karim. And I thought, well, you come along with me, on the first day. And we had Lou Minchin, who was brilliant.
Yeah, of course. Well,
I mean, what a fierce...
Louis, we have to mention as well, of course, is an age British triathlete and things as well.
Top news presenter and
exactly.
journalist.
On day 3 of the thing that we did, showed one of the most heroic displays of physical... Well, no, it was one of the most extraordinary physical displays I've ever seen. She'd, day 2, her leg was swollen. She's mega competitive. She didn't finish the day. She was really pissed off with herself. She started running off ahead of me. We had to go over these dunes every day. I said, you run with me. And it was unbelievable. She had COVID at the time as well. Nobody knew. It was extraordinary. But the two of us, we were the oldest, started running with Karim. And of course, he just wanted to stop for a sandwich and water.
Water.
You were supposed to be encouraging of that sort of thing. And there's the thing, I'd be terrible in the army. And we'd come back full circle in that way where you said about team sports. Is that, if I'd had on day 3, we all had to cycle slowly and along with each other in order to be. And yes, what I wanted people to do, I absolutely champion anybody that as there were several people there who were challenging their fears or really going out just to complete the day. I'm absolutely that human that will delight in their success and be the person at the back of the ride, forcing them to go on. If that's agreed, if that's part of what we've agreed today, as I am totally that person. However, if that's not the situation, you just need to, carry on running. Otherwise, we'd all be speaking German. No, that's just what they kept cutting those things out. I leave it in. You don't need a sandwich. Run.
I do agree.
I would agree
absolutely
with that. Absolutely. Lou and I were, I just don't complain. I want to hear it.
No, but the difference is, I think, as well, isn't it, with regards to sports, so we put it in a sport context and something like that. If you've never had the ability to push your body and brain to a place where
I think brain
it's-
more than body.
Well, yeah, but no, but it's your body being screaming at you to stop, but you're strong enough to override that with your brain. That's a really powerful thing that not many people have ever done, and often you find this is where I think sportsmen and women are good at overcoming challenges, possibly because you're in a way forced to do that. Because if you're trying to become the best in the world at whatever event you're doing, whatever
you have to
sport,
ignore all the signs telling you to
exactly.
stop.
Now, not injury and whatever else. I mean, that's different. But your body and your brain in particular often wants you to stop. And having that ability to, but you clearly have that ability, even though you weren't a professional sports person. So that's a fascinating tool that you've managed to acquire, where not many, and there'll be a lot of people listening going, "You're mad."
But I think
Why
a lot
on
of
earth?
people listening will also understand it, because I don't think you need to be a top athlete to have that. And
Of
sometimes
course
it's
you don't.
something
No,
that's
absolutely not.
Just in you, and can be your own worst enemy sometimes.
But then
as
I
well,
would-
but
I-
you need to listen to yourself much
But it
better.
only
in some
comes
we
with
do.
switching off, is my point.
Yeah.
It's not about the competitive aspect of it.
No, of course.
Exactly as we're sharing. It's that
I
for you, that was included in the algebra of this
course,
magical
of course.
day. I mean, the triumph, the zenith of the zenith, right? There is nothing. And what I'm glad about and privileged to hear, privileged is the wrong word, actually, grateful is right. Grateful. I'm really grateful that you still include that as that moment. Because I think the tragedy, as there must be for a lot of people in serious professional sport that get their gold medal, would be like an astronaut I was listening to the other day, who was not the most obvious candidate for NASA. Fascinating listening to him and reading about him. And he was obviously very honest as well. And he was asked what it was like the first time he looked out of the window from the space shuttle onto the Earth, which is supposed to be, as we would all project and assume, the most profound moment of any human being's life, this sort of great thing he'd waited to see. And his answer was, "Meh." And which I thought was really honest. But that is one of the things, and one of the only regrets that I have from thinking about it now, and maybe reflecting on certain events even that have happened today, saying no to things, for instance, is where really cool things are happening, perhaps amazing things, perhaps things I've worked for, and you may even achieve them, and you forget to delight in the moment. So I really genuinely love that whatever happens to you in life, that moment, perhaps I assume you're talking about winning your gold medal on that day, day in history, really, certainly in British sport, in international sport, for you and for others who have memories of that day which are not even about you, that it was as magical in every sense of that word for you is a real gift of a thing. Because plenty of people, I feel sure, that reach that gold medal, that just like the bloke that looked out at the Earth for the first time, having done all of that work, that got it, hear their national anthem, if they're being honest, go,
I would also like to say it's definitely a learned thing as well. So it is something that with time you look back on and realise much more how important that is. That's something Matthew Pinson once said to me. He said, if you win an Olympic gold medal, you don't realise the importance of it at the time, but it's something that you learn to appreciate, and that's most certainly happened. So that again, everybody's Olympic gold medal is very different.
We will take your word for that, Greg. Everybody's Olympic gold medal. Rob, I'm very conscious you have got to dash off. You've got about 2 minutes, I think, to go and host a classical music concert in aid of Ukrainian refugees, which we wanted to talk about, and we haven't even had the chance to, because your story has been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing those experiences. It's been a really powerful conversation. I feel like I've had my own meditation just listening to you. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
It's been therapy for me. So thank you so much.
But it's been very dry. I'm sorry, your single malt didn't arrive in the end.
nothing arrived. It's terrible.
I reckon it's outside the door, so I reckon
You
it's
can
there
neck
when
it on the
you
way,
finish.
maybe.
I wanted, we are, what was I about to say to you? Sorry, I've had a very peculiar text message. It's quite worse when you look down, you know what I mean? You're like, oh.
This is why you do exercise, you see, so you're not
exactly.
distracted by your
I
phone.
mean, you
Yeah,
immediately,
yeah.
the best ones will go, okay, that's fine, that's curable. That's the, it's been a real delight. But I think really the theme of it in terms of sport is what I do every day, and the thing that I want to share with anybody is whatever you do, delight in it and be in the moment. Whether that's, I found this new cool dance class, I'm looking over here. It's amazing. It's full of joy and the phone is off and it's great. And that's what sport is and can do, and the transportative capacity it has. More than just tawdry escapism of just watching telly or a film. It can be an entire drama in one moment if you're watching team sport, but if you're doing it for yourself, the gifts that it brings are, truly forever changing. It's great.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Support Ukraine.
What a story to finish on from Rob Rinder. That stayed with me for days afterwards. I felt like I was in the desert with him, and it really just resonated with me because, as you know, I don't drink alcohol anymore, and I stopped 6.5 years ago, just after my daughter was born. And since then, I've been a little bit obsessed with, I don't think I've ever even told you this. I have. I told you about my breathwork stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I've been a little bit obsessed with finding this peace, this inner peace, this calm, this, as he was talking about, this orgasmic silence almost. But a natural euphoria like that is, to me, the dream, especially because I don't drink, I don't take drugs, and so that to me is like my nirvana. That's what I'm always trying to achieve, is that sort of stillness and peace that brings you right into yourself and right into the now. Have you ever had anything like that, or do you even know what it refers to?
I don't think in that context, no, and that's the thing. I mean, there's been moments of pure exhilaration and everything else, and everything coming together and it being incredible. But
like your Olympic win.
Yeah, but I think that's definitely different, and I appreciate that's different, and it's fascinating. I think for me, obviously, still I'll find something that becomes possibly, because I think sport was everything. That was it. So success and winning is where those moments, I was close to those moments, but outside of that, it's probably then finding that and. I mean, I'd had that discussion not long after Rob had gone through that, which was really, really interesting. And you always worry, don't you, when you've got a friend coming or whatever else, and you're like, have this expectation, because I had this expectation that he would tell stories like that, and it would be incredible. But then to watch, not just yourself, but everybody in the room during that, just sort of mouth open, sort of living it with him, that was really, really special. And I'm thrilled to bits that he gave us that part of him, which is a incredibly deep and personal part. And again, it just makes me want to then go and try and find it myself somehow. But I don't know, it seems like such an interesting path to get there. I'm not even at the start of that, I don't think, yet. So it's maybe one day it will come, and I'm very excited about hopefully coming. Yeah, with
Sounds
what
fun.
for a better word, yeah. So.
Well, because actually when we were chatting last summer, because we worked together in the Olympics, and I was telling you about the breathwork that I do, and you keep saying to me, "Oh, send me one of your breathwork sessions or whatever,"
Yeah.
and I haven't done it yet. So
No.
I'll do that.
You're just keeping it to yourself.
I-
That's the thing. You're not allowing me to find it. That's the thing.
No, I want to spread that joy, and it sounds odd, and maybe we'll get into it in another podcast when we get more time. But it's something I became quite obsessive about, because I love, you get one of those highs, you want to get them again, and when it's something as natural and harmless as your own breath, it's amazing. But I'll send you a link.
Please do.
Right, should we hold ourselves to this? I'll send you a link
That's you.
tonight.
I mean, it's I
and
just
then
have
you've
to
got to
receive
try.
it.
No, you've got to try it. You've got to
Oh,
do
okay,
it
fine,
and
fine.
put yourself into it and
Okay.
let me know.
It's a long
Report
drive home,
back
maybe
to
not
me.
on the way home.
Not when you're driving. I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, I'm gonna test you on that and see whether it's had any effect on you whatsoever. You might be like, you're absolutely
you never know.
off your tree.
But I think like anybody listening or watching whatever else, you have to be open to trying new things as well. And I hope that's what people are getting from different pods that we've had. It's been directional changes or following you and whatever else, but being willing to try new things and search for that, as you sort of talk about that euphoria, that orgasmic moment. That's a really special thing, I think, to chase. And I think a lot of people get a lot from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say you get it from winning. So let's see whether Greg had his moment once again.
We have to
I
very
feel so
quickly
ridiculous introducing rock, paper, scissors as a thing, but it clearly is a thing now. What
Yeah,
were
we
you
have, we have to mention as well very quickly that Rob before wasn't exactly enamoured by the idea of playing rock, paper, scissors with us. Everybody else is really into it. That does say maybe a little bit about us, maybe more than...
Yeah, he said, really, you thought about this and that's what you came up with? But he went with it anyway.
He got
So
it.
let's see whether he surprised himself, shall we?
This is the only bit to the podcast that we really care about, though, isn't it? It's all a build up to this.
Yeah,
essentially.
everything before this point doesn't really matter because Orla turns into the most competitive, aggressive human you've
What do we
ever
have to
met.
do? Is it arm wrestling?
No, it's way more
It's
challenging.
What is it?
Rock, paper, scissors.
That's what you came up with.
I told you that's how he'd respond. That's exactly what I said would happen. So,
But it's what we do. It's what we do.
Gosh, and the great competitive buffet podcast. Did you see the great Orla and Rinda rock, paper, scissors war? I'm glad I tuned into that.
it's a massive
How
part.
long did it take for you to Blue Sky think that one? Okay, let's go.
Right, so it's a
No
three-
pressure.
it's a
No
three-way.
guest has won yet.
Yeah, not a single guest has won yet.
Okay, ready?
It's a three-way.
It's a what?
It's a three-way.
Okay, now you've triggered me.
Very clever, Greg.
Yes,
you knew what you were doing.
exactly.
He knows. He knows.
Yes.
So it's not like best of three for everybody. If you're out, you're out. Okay.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, you got to put your hand up.
I've got to put my what?
Yeah, hand up.
My fan. What's that a combination of? My fingers and hands.
Yes, exactly.
My
Yeah.
hand.
I knew this would descend into anarchy. I knew
Okay,
it would.
right, you
I said
ready?
literally before
Yeah,
I said.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, ready? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I'm still out. I thought I got you. This is twice
that
now.
is
I've fallen
brilliant.
down the
This
scissor
is
the scissor hole that you fell
The
down.
scissor hole.
I've fallen down it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Go on. You two. Bye
Right, you
bye.
ready?
Just pausing, what you need to clip, because you're missing the camera here, is when I was talking about earlier, that sort of wave. It'll just flash for a millisecond. There's a grave sense of loss that you didn't win. Correct.
And he
You
tries
haven't-
to displace it onto
You
me
haven't
every
seen Orla
time.
win yet, though. You haven't seen Orla. She literally jumps around. Right. Okay. Come on.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Rock, scissors, shoot.
Oh.
Okay,
Ready?
ready?
Oh, she won!
Well done.
That's subdued. You're now trying to show off to Rob.
That I'm an adult.
That's
that I'm a
subdued.
civilized human.
The thing is, I'll
Thank you
send
very much, thank you
Rob
very much.
the videos of the other wins.
And yours. And yours.